What is gambler's fallacy? The gambler's fallacy is a false belief that past events will influence future events, even if these events are independent of each other. It involves making incorrect assumptions about the probability of an event and ending up with wrong outcomes. The gambler's fallacy is also known as the Monte Carlo fallacy. It is most often seen in gambling but can occur in everyday life. For example, investors and business people often make a gambler's fallacy while making decisions, which may turn out to be poor judgment and result in losses. The gambler's fallacy is the faulty belief that a specific set of sequences will lead to particular outcome. It is most commonly seen in gambling but can also affect real life decision making. The gambler's fallacy is also known as Monte Carlo fallacy, derived from the famous casino incident in 1913. It is a cognitive bias that can lead to poor decision making. It is also closely related to the hot hands fallacy. Simply being aware of gambler's fallacy bias can help one to avoid it. How does the gambler's fallacy work? Imagine that a person is flipping a coin. The coin has landed on the head side up 5 times in a row. How would the coin land on its sixth toss? If the person chose tails only because the coin has already landed on heads 5 times, they have fallen victim to the gambler's fallacy bias. The truth is, the coin landing on heads 5 times has zero influence on which side it will land during the next toss. Therefore, regardless of its previous outcomes, the coin will always have a 50-50 chance of landing on heads. A cognitive bias related to the gambler's fallacy is the hot hand fallacy. It is a very similar concept that works in the opposite direction. If someone suffers from the hot hand delusion, they believe that a winning streak will continue to win. So in the example above, if a person is subject to the hot hand line of thinking, they would believe that the flipping would end up with the coin landing on heads since it already has so many times. It's not uncommon for people to fall victim to either of these fallacies. This is because our brains are hardwired to look for sequences and make assumptions for them. For example, a study appearing in the American Association for the Advancement of Science found that humans typically use 3 judgment methods in decision making. These methods are the availability of scenarios, representatives, and an anchor. Although these judgment methods can be useful, they can lead to errors in decision making. Some events are truly random. Past sequences have zero effect on their future outcomes. They are independent of their previous nature and will continue to produce unpredictable results. What are the examples of gambler's fallacy? The most well-known case of gambler's fallacy bias was observed in a casino in Las Vegas, from where this fallacy gained its name. In August 1913, gamblers around the roulette table began to notice that roulette ball had fallen on black several times in a row. Convinced that the ball would have to fall on red soon, many roulette players began to place their bets on red. The ball didn't fall on red until the 27th spin, costing the gamblers millions because they expected it to fall on red but it did not. Because the roulette wheel ball had fallen on black so often, the gamblers thought the odds of it falling on red were high. This assumption was absolutely incorrect. The actual probabilities of the ball landing on red were 50-50 for each spin. The number of times the ball fell on black had zero influence on the roulette ball's next outcome. What are some real life examples of gambler's fallacy? The gambler's fallacy can affect everyday life. In everyday life, one can see the gambler's fallacy occurring in luck or fear. Some of the basic examples are, for example, a lightning can't strike the same place twice, or assuming next year's winter will be harsh because this year's winter was mild, or believing lucky or unlucky streaks have to end soon because one must balance luck, or thinking the odds of a shark attacking in the same area twice are low, or believing that a winning football team can't continue its winning streak. These are all examples of gambler's fallacy because this may not necessarily be true. A fascinating gambler's fallacy example is often seen in parents who believe that the gender of their first children will affect the gender of their next child. Even if a couple has 5 male children, it will not improve the odds of their next child being female. The odds will always remain 50-50. So many times it happens that a couple who has 3 daughters, they think that now because they have 3 daughters, definitely this time they will get a son. But this is not the case. This is gambler's fallacy because every time they conceive a child, the probability of it being a boy or a girl is 50-50 in every case, independently of what outcome they have received in the previous conceptions. This fallacy can also affect business decision making. A 2019 study involving agricultural producers found that those who had experienced good outcomes the previous year were less likely to predict good results for the following year. These guesses were made solely on the producers thinking that their good luck must end. They did not make the decisions based on facts and data. Since the share market is a scene of predictions and assumptions, gambler's fallacy plays a frequent role in trading sessions. Traders and investors often fall prey to the gambler's fallacy as they wrongly anticipate the opposite trend after the stock market follows a particular trend for some time. This may prompt them to make buying or selling decisions that can invite losses. How to avoid gambler's fallacy? The gambler's fallacy is a cognitive bias. The good news is that merely being aware of the gambler's fallacy and randomness can help one avoid falling victim to it. It is better to stop and ask oneself this question when they are in a situation where the gambler's fallacy may influence decisions. Will past events influence future events, or does this situation happen randomly? Past events cannot influence future outcomes if the event occurs at random, such as a coin flip or a roulette ball landing on a wheel. If a person is on a winning streak, it does not mean that they are destined to lose next time. Likewise, if they are on a losing streak, they are not destined to win the next time. If something comes down to pure luck, one cannot accurately predict the outcomes. Thank you so much for listening.